Hello everyone, and welcome to the live class today for IELTS. My name is Adrian, and I am broadcasting to you from Budapest, capital city of Hungary. All right, today we are doing IELTS reading practice with some strategies. Again, these materials are coming from our websites, aehelp.com for academic IELTS, geltshelp.com for general IELTS. There's 6 full practice exams for each of those websites, interactive courses, lots and lots of videos for strategies and effective skills to pass IELTS. You can order our books from Amazon as well. Search for AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS. If you have questions about our products or IELTS, I'm happy to help out, or one of my colleagues, just send us an email. You can send emails to my address, adrian@aehelp.com. That's my name, at aehelp.com. All right, on the websites, you will also find writing and speaking services available, so you can take advantage of those. Those are pay-on-demand services. And here you see our schedule. So we stream these classes according to Central European time. So if you type in CET time zone difference, you can see that in Google. Again, today reading strategy. Tomorrow we'll do speaking part 1 and 2. And then on Saturday is a members chat class. One of the members requested a task 2 writing topic, so we'll be covering that. Members get to request classes. They get access to the exams we use in the class, special discounts for the full course, and access to exclusive videos. All right, no class Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then back on the 7th with more IELTS to get you those high band scores. All right. Girls and guys, so many of you joining in right now. Hi, Jeffrey. It is a vegan day today, are you saying? Hi, Jubilant James. Hi, Clash Without Virus. Hi, Hank Fam. Good to see so many students returning to the class. Nice to see members jumping in. I'm referring to you, Naveen Kumar. Good to see you in class as well. Hi, Amar Wadi. Always happy to have you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about reading in the IELTS. Now, reading in the academic and in the general are a little bit different, okay? This class is focusing mostly on academic. But the skills that you use to get ready for the reading section, many of them are the same for academic and for general IELTS. You need to use visualization in reading, okay? That means to see the information that you're reading or be able to imagine the information that you're reading. You need to do that in general and academic passages. You need to practice paraphrasing, as I always say, both for general and the academic. And of course, you need to focus on active reading. That's so very important, okay? Active reading, which is somewhat synonymous with critical reading. It means it's kind of the same as critical reading or critical analyses of reading. We'll get into a little bit of that today. I know there are a lot of students that say, I can read in English. I can actually use English quite well, but my problem is in the IELTS, I have a short time and I try to read and then I forget what I read, and even though I think I understand what I'm reading, I can't use the information. Yeah, that's a problem, okay? No doubt that is a problem. So when you read, you need to remember what you read. And ideally, so in a perfect world, you need to remember the order of information as well, okay? So that's your goal. When you're practicing the IELTS reading section, you have to focus on not just the English, not just understanding, but also remembering the information and remembering the information in order. Suk Singh, I'm doing great, feeling excellent. Thank you. I've improved my diet and doing lots of exercise these days. Thanks for asking, Suk Singh. Hope everybody else who's watching is doing great also. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this practicing critical reading before you sit the IELTS test. One way to do that is read and ask what, why, how for each paragraph, okay? That can get a little bit boring after a while, but it's a very effective practice for reading. So let's take a look at a reading passage from our first exam book, and this is test number 2, passage number 3, okay? So here you can see reading passage 3. You should spend about 20 minutes on questions 27 to 40, and you should, of course, read the passage in the 20 minutes and also answer the questions. Now, again, girls and guys, I say this every time I teach reading. Skimming, scanning are not truly effective strategies to get high band scores, okay? And one of the best ways I can show that and prove that is everybody who teaches skimming and scanning for IELTS passages, they don't actually use it themselves, okay? I would never use skimming and scanning alone to get a good IELTS band score in reading, okay? If I sit the IELTS tomorrow, there's no way that my main strategy is going to be skimming and scanning because I know that that is not effective to get a band score of 6.57 or higher, okay? So careful with that. You need to use active reading. That's what I would use. That's what your teachers would actually use, okay, is their active reading skills. So that's what you need to use. Okay. So here we go. I'll answer your question real quick. You're saying, where can I practice these? You can practice these on our website. Okay. All right. So here we go. You look at the title. If you have a picture, look at the picture. Okay. Pictures are always there to help you. Pictures are there to remind you to visualize. Okay. So when you see the picture, remember to visualize the topic. They usually give pictures when it's a topic that you can see clearly. Okay. This one says explosions in space, supernovae. And then here you have this really bright looking explosion. So just by this, what is this passage about? So what are we looking at? What information will we be reading simply by looking at the title and this picture? You should always get a good idea of the information before you begin reading. Don't just jump in there cold, okay? That's a shock, and it's not good for your IELTS band score. So Pachu Yadav says, stars are striking. Shuk Singh says, oh, it's about space. Jignesh Shah says it's information regarding supernovae and it's caused because of an explosion. Jignesh, very good. Yeah, absolutely. That's some nice detail there. So something about supernovae, and obviously it's connected in some way to explosions or things blowing up in space. Naveen says maybe it's collisions of asteroids. Amar Awadi says rockets and spaceships. Possibly, but all of you are talking about space, so definitely you're right on space. You can see all these little dots here. They're stars, and this is clearly a big star. So good. Okay, good. You're thinking and visualizing in the right way. All right. Now, again, our focus is critical analytical reading, so let's stick with that. There are a lot of different strategies to improve your reading skills, not just for IELTS, but for university and life as well. Right now, again, we want to focus just on critical analytical reading skills. Okay, so let's do that. Read with me. Okay, so let's read paragraph A together. Don't worry about the questions for now. We'll look at those later. For now, focus on the information. So focus on what are we reading here? Why is the author writing about this? And how does the author present or support this information? So think about those questions. Okay, let's read together. Supernovae are among the most spectacular events in the universe. They are incredibly powerful. In just a few weeks, they can release the same amount of energy as our sun will release in its entire lifetime. Supernovae are also the origin of many of the elements that make up the universe. Most of the elements of the periodic table require enormous amounts of energy to produce, and supernovae are the only source of this energy. Due to their consistent brightness, supernovae are used to measure large distances across the universe. Okay, now, so you read this paragraph, and at home, when you're practicing your IELTS, and you have a passage in front of you, what you want to do is ask these questions, okay? So ask what, why, how. Start with the what. That's usually in the beginning of the paragraph, the topic sentence. So what is this paragraph about? So keep it simple, but make sure to give a complete answer. So what is this paragraph about? What's the answer? So what is this paragraph about? Let's see. Spectacular, succinct means amazing or incredible. Okay, so what is this paragraph about? Ahmed English has the first correct answer. It is about the existence of supernovae in the universe. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, about supernovae. All right, good. Why? Why does the paragraph talk about supernova? So that's your next question here. Okay, now this is where you want to be very clear. So why does the paragraph discuss about supernova? Why is this an important topic? Why are people interested in it? Why are astronomers, scientists interested in supernova, or if we want to say it plural, it's supernovae. I think it's with an E on the end. Yeah, there we go. So why are they interested in this? Okay, so Sajjad says it's because it's the source of energy in the universe, because of its power. Those are some good answers. Because it is a source of energy in the universe. It is immensely powerful. Immensely means greatly. I believe it's spelled with an I. Okay, there's some other reasons there that are given. Why else? So it's immensely powerful. Yeah, Jubilant James says, hey, guys, girls, let's not forget it talks about supernovae because it is associated with the origin of many of the elements that make up the universe, including the elements that make up our physical bodies, okay? So absolutely, it is the origin of the elements that make up the universe. Okay, elements are like oxygen, hydrogen, helium, iron, and so on, right? Okay, how? So the next question is how. Hows are usually examples, okay, or more detailed descriptions. So how does the author support this? Okay, so what evidence or example is given? All right, that's what you need to think about. So answer this for me. It's also an important one, and it's good to be able to separate the what, why, and the how clearly. So how does, let me phrase this a different way to help you. So how does the author support the great power of supernovae? Okay, let's see if anybody caught that. And that's where you're building into the details of what you're reading. So Pradeep Sapkota, you are on the right track. You're saying, well, the author shows how much energy it actually releases. You're on the right track, Pradeep. What does the author actually say in connection to that? Okay, so the author actually goes into a little bit of detail there. All right, here, have a look. It's there. So the author actually states something that we can measure a little bit better. There we go, last September, very good. So the author compares the energy of supernovae to that of our sun. Why? Because humans, we know the power of our sun, at least we can feel it, its warmth, its brightness. So the author says that supernovae are so powerful that they release the same amount of energy that our sun will release in its entire lifetime in just a few weeks, right? So that's a very specific detail. That would be a how. So how does the author prove the power of supernovae? By comparing it to our sun, right? So the author details the power of supernovae by comparing it with our sun, right? Sun is, of course, the name of our star. It's the unique name, right? It is our sun. That's why I use the capital here, although you don't always have to. Okay, good. So this is really important practice, this critical reading, analytic reading, for a couple reasons. It helps you... so this type of practice, I should emphasize, this type of practice helps you to not only remember information that you read, but also keep information in a systematic order. The same sequence as the passage or as the author. Okay? And that's your goal, all right? When you learn how to do that, the 20 minutes in the IELTS reading becomes much longer, and your confidence to answer questions without flipping like a crazy squirrel back and forth between the passage and the questions becomes much better, okay? I'm always really frustrated when I see my students flipping the pages of IELTS reading passages. In fact, when I teach students live, which is rare these days, but when I used to, I would just stop the students and say, whoa, 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 stop flipping pages. That's not how you get good scores. That's not the right way. It's very frustrating for both the student and the teacher, and it leads to low marks, not just in the reading, but in the writing section after as well, because it's very tiring for the brain. Okay, let's try this with one more paragraph, ladies and gents. So let's do this with paragraph B, okay? Kailash Shah, it absolutely doesn't take a lot of time to do this during the exam. When you practice this at home, your brain starts to do this very quickly and automatically. It starts to tune in. It starts to be trained to think this way. So Kailash, if you don't practice this at home and then you go to the exam and go, okay, now I'm going to do a what, why, how, yeah, you're going to be in trouble. It'll take you a long time and you will run out of time. But if you practice this with 5, 6 full exams at home before you sit the IELTS, your brain will do it very quickly. Okay? All right. And accurately. I should say and accurately. Okay? All right. So let's go to paragraph B. Let's read it together. Let's go through the what, why, how. Now, of course, in the official exam, you're not writing down the answers. You're just doing it in your brain. Okay? Your brain is naturally doing this. Okay. Let's read paragraph B. There are two major types of supernovae, type 1a and type 2. There are a number of differences between the two, but the main difference is the process by which they come into being. Type 2 supernovae originate from a dying star. A star begins to die when it runs out of fuel. Fuel for stars is the element hydrogen. For their entire lives, stars fuse hydrogen into helium, producing energy in the process. This energy comes from the difference in mass between a helium molecule and the 4 constituent hydrogen atoms. 4 hydrogen atoms have a mass of approximately 4.0318 atomic mass units, while a helium atom's mass is approximately 4.0026 atomic mass units. The difference between these two values is the amount of mass which is converted into pure energy. In a dying star, there is no more hydrogen. All that is left is helium. At that point, the star begins to fuse helium molecules together to form carbon molecules. Once all the carbon is gone, the star moves on to even heavier elements, and the star consumes these heavier elements at a faster and faster rates. A star may take 10 million years to consume its hydrogen, then take 1,000,000 years to consume its helium, 1,000 years for carbon, and 3 years to consume the neon, 3 months for the oxygen, and only 5 days to convert all of the silicon into iron. There is a stopping point, however. Once the core of the star is entirely iron, there can be no more fusion. This is because the small difference in mass that is converted into energy is not present in the case of iron. The star is then left with an inactive iron core. Once the core reaches a certain mass called the Chandrasekhar limit, the star can no longer exist under its own weight, and it collapses in on itself. The result is a cataclysmic type 2 supernova. Okay, good. So let's jump back to that original question. What is this paragraph about? The what here is actually a little bit trickier than usual. What is this paragraph about? Pooja, not quite. That would be the first assumption as well, the types of supernovae, type 1a and type 2, but it's not. Jignesh Saw is much more accurate here. It's information about the type 2 supernovae. Yeah, absolutely. Jeffrey, very good. Yeah, it's about type 2 supernovae. It's not about the types of supernovae. It's about the type 2 supernovae. Why? The paragraph doesn't speak much about the type 2, or sorry, the type 1a, right? So what is this paragraph about? The answer is it is about the type 2 supernovae. Okay. Now here's the why question. Why does it discuss this information? Okay. So why does it discuss this information? So what's the answer to the why? So CCR Batari says, well, why? Because it discusses the process of what happens in a type 2 supernovae. To share the process, Aditya Kar, a different way to say it, but both are correct answers. To explain that there are 2 types of supernovae and highlight the process by which type 2 supernovae happen. Okay, so if you want the full answer to the why question, why does the author discuss type 2 supernovae? These are the most important points. So why does it discuss this information? Well, the author wants to explain that there are 2 types of supernovae and highlight the process by which type 2 supernovae happen. So that would be your full answer to the question of why does the author discuss this information. All right, so the next question here is how. So how does the author support this explanation? Okay, what's the answer there? And I'll let you cheat a little bit. When you're practicing this at home, eventually you want to get to a point where you don't need to look at the paragraph, but you can get the correct answers simply by reading it just once, okay? That's where you know you're doing a good job. So Marwadi says, by giving an example, last September says, by giving some details. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Absolutely. Okay, so by giving examples, giving details, what are those? So this is where when you're practicing at home, you do want to reach for specifics. So here it says that hydrogen is fused into helium. You don't have to write out the whole paragraph again, but something like this. The author explains that hydrogen is fused into helium, which is fused into heavier and heavier elements. Finally, into iron. After this, the star collapses in a great explosion. Okay? So that would be the how, all right? So again, you want to give enough detail that you train your brain to remember sequential information, but you don't have to say every little detail. So you don't have to talk about the neon and the silicon or anything like that, okay? All right, now you get this idea of what, why, how, okay? So what, why, how? This is one really effective strategy to improve your analytical, critical reading, all right? So again, what we did here, we read a paragraph and then we ask what, we ask why, we ask how. We answer with enough detail to be clear, but not too much detail, okay? Practice this before you sit the IELTS, and you'll definitely improve your reading band score. Now, once you get maybe a little bit bored of this, there's another exercise that you can do, and that's simply reading the passage. So I recommend doing the critical reading, what we did first, and then once you get the hang of that, the next step that you can go to is read a whole passage. You can do this with partners, and then generate questions, okay? So this one is called generating questions. Again, it's still critical or analytical reading, all right? And the steps to it here is, firstly, you want to read the whole passage. You can do it with a partner. Okay, I've already put it up here, so you could do this with partner or alone. You can do it alone. So read the entire passage, and then generate questions of your own, all right? So not the questions in the passage. I'm not talking about the actual questions, but the questions that you generate on your own. Okay, now you should focus on details and asking questions in the order of the passage. Okay, so don't jump around. All right, that's not good. So don't ask a question about the end of the passage and then jump back to the beginning of the passage and then jump to the middle of the passage. That's not good. You want to, again, train your brain to be a little bit more of a linear machine. This is very important because IELTS questions in the reading passage often follow the sequence of the passage anyway, okay? Kesra Raz is asking, what part or parts of the passage are good ones to generate questions from? All parts, Kesra, because the IELTS has a pretty good split between what, why, how questions. So when you look at the questions after the passages, you'll notice that they're either a what question, a why question, or a how question for the most part. Okay, they're targeting these three questions, and it's a pretty even split. If I had to say, Kesra, I would say that the why questions are, of course, maybe a little bit more dominant than the what or the how, but there are a lot of what and how questions as well. Okay, let's do that with the rest of this passage. I'll turn the camera back on here. I realize that it stopped momentarily. So we'll read the rest of the passage, okay, and then we'll focus on generating some questions from each other. All right, so your goal here is understand as much of the passage as possible and then generate questions for your fellow students who are also watching this lesson. For myself, I'll help out a little bit. Okay, so I'll do that. All right. Gurjit asked that question at the end of class, and I'll let you know. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so let's go to paragraph C. We'll read the rest of this together, and then we will focus on generating some questions. Okay, so here we go. Read with me, nice and loud. Okay, nice and loud, everyone. So the other type of supernova is the type 1a. Type 1a supernovae are formed most commonly in binary star systems where there are two stars which rotate around a common point. For a supernova type 1a to occur, one of the stars has to be a white dwarf. A white dwarf is the remnant of a low-mass star that has come to the end of its stellar life. Our sun will one day be a white dwarf because it lacks the mass needed to blow up in a supernova type 2 explosion. In a binary system, the white dwarf star gravitationally attracts matter from its companion star. With the matter taken from the companion star becoming part of the white dwarf, eventually the white dwarf will have added so much mass that it begins to approach the Chandrasekhar limit. Once it hits this limit, just like in type 2 explosions, the white dwarf can no longer sustain itself and the core of the star collapses. The star blows itself up in an even more spectacular event than the type 2 explosion. Type 1a supernovae are extremely bright. If the sun were to be replaced by a type 1a supernova, it would appear 5 billion times brighter. This brightness is also very consistent from one supernova type 1a to another supernova type 1a. This consistency has led astronomers to use supernova type 1a as what are called standard candles. A standard candle is used to determine how far away an object is. For example, if we observe a supernova type 1a in a nearby galaxy, we can tell very accurately how far away it is by comparing the apparent brightness of the supernova observed with its absolute brightness. Respectively, if the supernova is very bright, the galaxy is quite close. If the supernova is very dim, the galaxy is very far away. Here we go. Supernovae are responsible for every element in the universe that is heavier than iron. Every atom of gold, silver, tin, and lead, as well as 80 other elements in the universe, was born in a supernova. Supernovae are also the origin of most newly born stars in the universe. Our sun, for example, was born from a cloud of dust and gas that was left over from a supernova. The Earth, likewise, was born from supernova. It is not too imaginative, therefore, to regard the plants, animals, and humans on this planet as a development of this supernova. Every atom of our bodies was once scattered in a supernova explosion. Therefore, many scientists believe supernovae are the crucibles of existence itself. Okay, good. So now let's generate some questions for each other, ladies and gents. And again, this is kind of a fun one to do in partners. So pay attention to generating it in the same sequence as you read the passage. So that means, hint, hint, I'll tell you right now, I'll help you out a little bit in the beginning. You should be asking questions about type 1a supernovae. Okay, so let's see some questions about that in the right order. All right, give me some questions, ladies and gents. Don't be shy here. So write it into the chat, whatever it is. Very good, Jubilant James. So Jubilant James says, what is the origin of type 1a supernovae? It's a good first question. Okay. Naveen's asking a very good question too. How does pairing take place between the two stars? In type 1a, of course, I'm assuming. Very good. Okay. So let's answer these as well. So Aditya says, what is a supernova 1? Exactly, that's a good question too. Amarwadi says, what forms a type 1a supernovae? Gurjit says, what are the consequences of type 1a supernovae? Very good. All right, so let's answer these ones before we ask too many questions. So let's go back to this first one, okay? So let's answer Jubilant's question here. What is the origin of type 1a supernovae? Okay? So what is the origin of type 1a supernovae? Okay, Jeffrey, you're moving ahead, which is great. So you guys and girls are generating some good questions, and you're moving along nicely. Okay, Pradeep says, it is formed after the transmission of a star into a white dwarf and their explosion. So, yeah, Pradeep, absolutely, it's a nice answer. So you're saying it is formed with the... Okay, so it is formed with the union of two stars or star remnants. That's the right word there. Remnants, right? Because one of them is a white dwarf, okay? So, okay, very good. So that's a good answer, okay? We could detail that more, but that's good enough. So what is the origin? The origin are two stars, one of which is a white dwarf. That might be even a better answer. The origin is two stars, one of which is a white dwarf. I think that's the most simple answer, okay? And I saw that some of you are nearing the same answer as what I gave. So that's great. All right. Let's answer the next question here. That was kind of an interesting one. It's a little bit more detailed. So how does the pairing take place? So how does that happen? What needs to be in the situation for this coupling of the two stars? I think Naveen asked that question, and that was a good one. Okay, did anybody catch that? Yeah, Kesra, you're on the right track with your answer. I think you were answering the previous one there with that, but you're actually answering this one as well. So the powerful gravity of a white dwarf begins to pull apart its neighboring star. Okay, right. Yeah, absolutely. So there are two stars basically. There are basically two stars there. And the white dwarf, which is very dense, has a large gravitational pull, starts to pull apart or suck apart the star that's close to it, okay? All right, good. Yeah, they're moving towards each other. They're close. They're in a common point. All right, and then let's answer this next one here. This was a really nice question. I forget who asked it, but it was a good question. So what are the consequences of type 1a supernovae? So consequences, I think what the student meant by consequences, and it's a correct word here, another way to say it is results. Okay? So what comes as a result of these type 1a supernovae? And it's quite fascinating. It's quite an interesting piece of information. And I think many of us are fond of these materials, and many of us highly value and possess some of these materials that are thought to come from these type 1a supernovae. Gurjeet says, well, they're responsible for the existence of life in many elements. That's near the end of the passage, Gurjeet, and it's not just type 1a, but it's also type 2 that are responsible for that. It's very, very bright. That's true. So there's a measurement that results from it called the candle unit, right? I believe was the name. But there is something even more specific that's discussed. Okay, so a standard unit of measure, candle units. Okay, it's very important, especially if you're a physics student. That's one answer, but there's also another answer there. I haven't seen it yet. Standard candles, that's right. That's a better way to say it. Yeah, used to measure absolute distances. Sure. And then what's another one that results from this? It was kind of interesting. The heavy what? What am I trying to write here? This was quite visual. So I wonder if anybody caught that. If you're visualizing, again, we didn't talk about visualizing today, but that's an important strategy as well. Jubilant says the heavy elements. Yeah, absolutely. The heavy elements such as okay. So the heavy elements such as gold, silver, platinum come from these extremely powerful type 1a supernovae. Absolutely, okay? So for all of you who love jewelry, who love gold, who love silver, I myself am definitely a fan of gold. I think it's a very amazing and interesting element. Type 1a supernovae are responsible for these. So if you ever want to do some interesting research, you can look into the background of that and find out some more information. Okay, good. So that's the idea. Ladies and gents, that's what you need to do. You need to generate questions and then keep going. Now you can ask questions about standard candles, how they work, how they measure distances in the galaxy. Why do scientists believe that supernovae are the crucibles of life itself? So there are lots and lots of questions that you can generate, and you'll often find that you're actually creating the questions that you will see at the end of the passage. So let's look at that now, and let's try to answer the questions in the passage as best as we can, okay? And let's try not to look at the passage. So let's try to answer these as much as we can just by memory alone, all right? Somebody asked me earlier, how can I manage my time? One of the really important skills for time management in the reading section is not looking for every single question, okay? If you're searching for 40 out of 40 questions, that takes a lot of time. And people who get high marks in the IELTS, teachers that would take the IELTS, nobody does that. Nobody looks for 40 out of 40 questions, okay? So you should answer about 60, 70% of questions without searching in the passage. So here we go. Let's do these together. So reading passage 1 has 5 paragraphs, A to E. Which paragraph contains the following information? Write the correct letter A to E in boxes 27 to 32 on your answer sheet. Note, by the way, you may use any letter more than once. That means that some of this information could be coming from the same paragraph again. Okay? So, number 27, mass energy conversion. So which paragraph, A, B, C, D, or E, talks about mass energy conversion? So converting energy into mass. All right, Aditya says that's B. Naveen says that's B. Yeah, remember, paragraph B is talking about the difference in the weight of hydrogen and helium, and that difference in the mass is made into energy. So good for you, especially for those of you that visualize that. Excellent. Absolutely, that's B. Okay, the requirements for a type 1a supernova. Number 28, that should be easy. We talked lots about this. We generated questions. Should be no problem. Pallav Chaudhary says it's C. Aditya agrees that it's C. Duppermeat says, yeah, that's going to be C. Ahmed, good to see you in class. Ahmed Abuhtwa, very good. Yeah, that's C. That was absolutely C. So remember, again, when you practice critical analytical reading, you'll remember that paragraph B was about type 2, paragraph 3 was about type 1a. Supernova as intergalactic measuring sticks. So number 29, what was that? Aditya says that's going to be D. Okay. I hope that many students who are watching this lesson from the beginning are now realizing how powerful critical analytical reading practice is. Yeah, because you're probably realizing, okay, yeah, or paragraph C talked about type 1a supernovae, how they're formed, and then paragraph D continued to talk about their brightness and how that's used to help humans with the standard measuring unit, right, which is the standard candles. Heavy elements come from supernovae. Heavy elements come from supernovae. Number 30. Which one was that? There is no paragraph H. Okay, Jeffrey says, I think that was D. Some of you are saying that was E. Okay, remember, so don't forget what we discussed here. The last question that we asked was, one of you students said this, so what are the consequences of type 1a supernovae? And then you said a standard unit of measure, standard candles. And then you said the heavy elements such as gold, silver, and platinum come from type 1a supernovae. So I think the best guess there then would have to be C, right? Okay. Again, once you practice this, use the information. Don't go off track. So I would probably say C for that one. I believe it's still in paragraph C where they talk about silver, gold, lead coming from supernovae, the heavy elements. The fuel used for stars. Okay. The fuel used for stars. Number 31, what is that? Pradeep Sabkota says B. Farhim Bagum. And Pradeep Sabkota says it again, and Aditya says it's B. Okay. Jeffrey says B. B. Yep. Okay, a lot of you are saying B, and you're right. What is the fuel? Okay. And I bet that the students who got this answer correct can answer this for me. What is that fuel? What is the fuel for stars? Jignesh says it's helium. Jignesh, you're not completely wrong. You just took it one step too far. The fuel is hydrogen. Okay, so the fuel for stars is hydrogen. Which paragraph talks about hydrogen as the fuel for stars? It is. It's paragraph B. Okay, so B is the correct answer there. Okay, now the last one, number 32. Supernovae are the progenitors of much of existence. So again, paraphrasing here, right? Progenitors means they are the originators of much of existence, so of much of the parts of the universe. This one should be easy, 32, girls and guys. It's E, right? So that very last paragraph says that plants, animals, humans, all the elements, at least the physical parts of what we see and touch, are most likely coming from these supernovae. So that's going to be E. So B, C, D, C, B, E. Notice that there's a repetition here and a repetition here, right? All right, very good. So again, analytical, critical reading practice helps you to move through and answer these questions quickly and accurately, okay? When you can do this effectively, if you read the passage in 12 minutes, 12 minutes is a lot of time to read a passage like this, then you can answer these questions very effectively. All right, let's go on to the next question set. So, complete the sentences below. Write your answers in boxes 33 to 36. Type 2 supernovae originate from a star which is something. So, type 2 supernovae originate from a star which is, keep it simple. Jeffrey says, dying. Pradeep agrees. That's dying. Jubilant James says, dying away. Okay, yeah, you could take that. 2 words. Dying is definitely the word, though. Okay. All right. Not capital. Okay, it's all small letters. It's just a common noun. If you're going to write all capitals, then write it all capital. So write it all capital. So dying. Okay. All right. The energy producing process in a star converts something into something. So the energy, you have to get both of these correct to get it right. So, yep, and I'll just pull off just small letters, okay? Again, these are common nouns. So hydrogen into helium. Yeah, you can use the atomics letters for this, okay? So you could use H for this. If you know that capital letter H is hydrogen, IELTS will take that. That does actually mean hydrogen, okay? So as long as you use them correctly. So you could do H and HE as Jubilant just put up there, all right? They would take that. Okay, but that's all you need, are those 2. Now here, the order has to be correct. So hydrogen in your answer sheet has to be first and helium second. If you mix that up, it's a wrong answer, okay? If I put helium into hydrogen here, that's a wrong answer. If you're in school, in high school or college, and you wrote that in the exam, obviously you'd get it wrong. So you're going to get it wrong if you do that in IELTS as well, okay? So you can't mix up the order in that kind of a question, and you have to get them both correct to get the mark, and the spelling has to be correct, okay? The death process starts when all of the hydrogen is used up. The star then begins to process something elements. So all of the hydrogen is used up. What does the star begin to process? Jeffrey says heavier elements, okay? Just heavier, not higher, Pradeep, heavier. Okay, heavier, not gold, okay, just heavier. We do not burn up gold, okay, gold does not get burned up in these stars. So processes heavier elements. The word elements is given, so you do not write that again, all right? Because if you write heavier elements, then it's heavier elements, which is a wrong sentence. You would get that wrong. You'd get that wrong in university. You'd get it wrong on the IELTS, okay? The first element that can no longer be fused into another element is, and again, if you're reading visually, this should be easy. So the last one here, number 36. The first element that can no longer be fused into is iron. That's right. Good for you. Iron. And if you see a block of iron, like you see an anvil, okay, the anvil looks like that. Okay, that's what people used to hit the metal on if you're making a sword, for example, right? So that's an anvil. If you visualize this big anvil inside of the star, it's an iron anvil. You can't really do much with that anymore. You can't fuse it or shape it into anything else, okay? So visualize that, all right? Be visual. All right. Let's look at the multiple choice. Multiple choice you should always try to answer without reading, okay? So answer on your own first. The sun will not become a type 1a supernovae. Why not? Okay. Thanks, Jagnesh. I try. All right. Why? Why will our sun not become a type 1a supernovae? I'm not showing you the choices because the correct strategy for answering multiple choice is to think about the answer on your own first. Okay? So why is our sun not going to become a type 1a supernova? I think this question actually should say type 2, not type 1. So why is it not going to become a type 2 supernovae? It's going to become a white dwarf at some point. Somebody there put up the right answer. Jubilant says because it lacks the mass needed to blow up in a type 2. Yeah. So that's what you should answer, that it lacks the size, it lacks the mass. So is it there? It is not a white dwarf. It will never reach the Chandrasekhar limit. It does not have a companion star. It is going to be a type 2 supernova. So maybe it is actually type 1a. So why is the sun never going to be a type 1a? Sorry, that was a trickier question than I thought before. A is wrong. B is wrong. I think the correct answer here, critical reading, is C. It does not have a companion star. Okay? So it will not become a type 2 supernovae because of B, because it can't reach the Chandrasekhar limit. But it's not going to become a type 1a because remember, to have a type 1a supernova, you need a companion star. You need a buddy. Okay? Our sun does not have a buddy. So the correct answer here is C. It doesn't have a companion star. That's what makes most sense. So I would put C here. You got to be very critical, okay? Okay, the next question. The Chandrasekhar limit is, what is it? Let me just hide the answers there. So what is the Chandrasekhar limit? And I'm glad now you all agree that that first one was C. So what is the Chandrasekhar limit? It's a physicist, mathematician from India, very, very famous in history, one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. So what is that Chandrasekhar limit? It's related to mass. Yes, Aditya, you're correct. But in what way is it related to mass? It is the point. What point is it? Okay. Well, you should be thinking it is the point where a star can no longer support its own weight, or mass can no longer support its own weight. Okay. So the mass at which a star will blow up in a supernova, the distance between two stars at which a white dwarf will blow up in a supernova, the time between fusing helium and fusing carbon, the distance between two stars at which the giant star will blow up in a supernova. Okay, what's the best answer? Pradeep says, I think that's A. Aditya agrees. And you're all right. Okay, that's going to be A. So it's the mass at which a star will blow up in a supernova. Okay? It's not the distance. It is not the time. It's not the distance. So distance, time, distance, mass. Okay? Most of you use the word mass. Now, I'll turn the camera back on for that last couple questions. If you think about the word mass, so you remember that the Chandrasekhar limit has something to do with mass, you shouldn't get this question wrong, okay? You should get this question correct because only one choice is really focusing on mass. The other three are focusing on time and distance. And it's not about time and distance. It's about mass, okay? It's a mass limit. So don't confuse yourself. Don't overcomplicate. Keep your ideas simple, okay? So that would be A. All right. Let's take a look at number 39. If two type 1a supernovae are observed and one is brighter than the other, what can be concluded about the dimmer one? Okay, so one more time. I'm going to hide the answers here. Have a look at 39. So we're looking at the bottom here, 39. Okay. If two type 1a supernovae are observed, it means seen, and one is brighter than the other, what can be concluded about the dimmer one? So Tasha Mughal says, well, we could say it's probably further away. Julian says the dim one, it's a galaxy far away. Aditya says it's far. Last September says it's near. Careful, Last September. What can we say or conclude about the dimmer one? I think further away is the better answer there. So it gives off less light. It is further away. It is closer. It gives off more light and is further away. A, B, C, or D. Keep it simple. Aditya says it's B. And hopefully many of you are also saying B, right? Keep it simple. It's further away. It can't be D. Why not? You're saying it gives off more light? No, it doesn't. Remember, the standard candle, or a type 1a supernovae, according to the passage, according to the author, it's incredible because it's a standard brightness. All type 1a supernovae are the same brightness. That's why we can measure them as absolute, or use them, sorry, as absolute distance, because their brightness is always the same. That's how we know that it's further away. If it gave off more or less light, we couldn't use it to measure because we wouldn't know. Okay, so it's the exact interesting fact that all type 1a supernovae are the same brightness, according to the author. All right, last question, ladies and gents. Supernovae can be compared to what? Supernovae can be compared to what? Okay, this one might be a little bit tricky to answer without seeing the questions. I think Tasha might have had a little quick peek at the answers there. Tasha says it's the universe's factory. Makes a lot of different pieces of existence. So there's your choices. So supernovae compared to the universe's factory, the universe's graveyard, the universe's hospital, the universe's recycling center. Which one do you think is the best answer? A, B, C, or D? It's a bit of a tricky one. I would probably go with D. Okay. Not A. A would be also an interesting choice, but I would go with D. Why D? Why would I go with D? Okay. Again, visualize, right? You have a star, blows up, explosion, okay? So big explosion, what happens? Get another star, get some elements. What happens? It blows up, you get another star. So this cycle is cyclical. Look at this word, recycle. Okay, this is a band 9 level question. If you visualize the supernovae, if you visualize the cycle of supernovae and stars, I would guess that it's recycling. So that would be my answer. But you know what? Maybe some of you would say, no, because it's just a supernova and that's just a factory that's making the star. Let's check the answer sheet. We'll find out. Okay. Now this is passage 3, ladies and gentlemen. So don't panic. It is the most difficult passage. This was a passage 3 that we looked at. Let's take a quick look at the answer key going from question 27. So again, this is found in our first exam book for those of you who have our courses and our exams. And this is passage number 3 in the second test. Answer keys are on page 201. Okay. So here we go. Okay. So the answers were B, C, D, E. Got that one wrong, I think. We put C. Somebody said E, I believe. That was correct. B and E. Okay, so that was for the first question set. B, C, D, E, B, and E. Okay, now for the filling in the blanks, it was dying, so good job there. Hydrogen, helium, heavier, very good. And iron, excellent for those, okay? So, Jubilant James, good for you. You caught that E there. Again, if you make 1 or 2 mistakes and you didn't actually even look at the passage once, you are doing a great job. You're going to get a very high band. 37, C, A, B, and D. Okay, so I think we did good there. D, yeah, the author agrees that that's going to be the recycling center of the universe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, excellent job. Somewhat of a tough class today, but a very, very useful class with some really important skills and practice before the IELTS exam. And then, of course, you use this type of critical and analytical reading during the exam in your mind. You need to be able to think of the information in paragraphs as what, why, and how. Jubilant James, the difference between the factories and recycle here is factories produce from basic components. Recycle means also break down certain components. So I think recycle is still the better answer. All right. Again, make sure to join our websites, aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gltshelp.com for general IELTS. You can try the demo version of our course for free. If you like it, upgrade to the full course where you get access to over 100 hours of videos with strategies, practice, skills, and tips for the IELTS. Real skills, real strategies that we use as professionals, as experts to pass IELTS. And of course, lots of exams, interactive courses. So keep up the good studies. Believe in yourself. You've done an amazing job today. Tomorrow, I'll be back, I believe, with some speaking. Bye for now. Have a great rest of your day. Have a wonderful night and sweet dreams if it's late in your country. Much love to all of you.